I grew up mostly with video games and just being outside, so I was never much of an avid reader, and I never had the urge to read any books at all when I was a kid. To be honest with you, it's still kind of the same way. Nowadays, books just act as like melatonin for me. They just knock me out whenever I try reading them. But this all slowly started to change for me once I started carrying this thing in my pocket. Essentially, this thing is just like a Kindle version of your smartphone that you normally carry in your pocket. It's very straightforward and pretty simple. It's super light, coming in at like 6 ounces. It's got Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, a 6.13-inch display at 300 ppi for the e-ink display, which means it's super crisp when it comes down to the letters and the way that it actually looks. It's got a speaker and a microphone on the bottom. And then finally, for whatever reason, there's also a camera on this thing. I don't know why there's even a camera at all, but that's a cool added feature, I guess. And what brings this device perfectly full circle is that it's running Android, bro. So you can customize this thing exactly how you want, and that's what makes it a game changer. Like, you can throw up Jujutsu Kaisen, bro. You can put up any manga. You can put up Haikyuu on this thing. You can make this thing look pretty sick, and even if manga's not your thing, you can still find some dope screensavers. As you can tell, I'm a pretty picky person, so like even when it comes to reading normal books, I prefer to read hardcover books. I like to have like specific things on in the background, or like background noise, like a fireplace or whatever, things to just make the experience overall a little bit better. And this device helps me do that even more, which I didn't even think was possible, because I initially bought this thing assuming it wouldn't actually entice me to read, and I just end up returning it because I'd rather just read on a hardcover book. But that was not the case at all, and that's because of several reasons. But to start with, the ergonomics of the device are perfect. I mean, it fits my hand like a glove. It is such a great size because they're mimicking a smartphone, so it's super easy to hold no matter what position you're in. I think most of our ideas of an e-reader are, you know, what Kindles look like in kind of a bigger size, so it's weird to think about reading in this form factor, but I've actually come to really enjoy it and prefer reading in this way than any other besides maybe a hardcover book. And even then, like I said, it can be a toss-up. And the best part about this device that people talk about, but it's not actually given the proper praise, is the buttons, bro. The buttons on this thing, bro, they tingle a spot inside of my stomach that I didn't think was possible. So there's 3 buttons on this thing. On the left side, there's the action button that I believe you can just program to do pretty much whatever you want. You can pick and choose. That could refresh your screen. It could close out apps. It could go to like a viewfinder, whatever it is you need it to be, you could have it do that action. On the right side, there's a power button to, you know, lock the device or just turn it off. And then the juiciest part of it all, the volume up and down button. And these buttons are also programmable, but obviously you're going to be using these mostly in the apps to turn the pages of the book that you're reading. And oh my, dude, this is seriously, like, it sounds stupid, but this is like getting me to read more, just because the tactile feelings of it are so much better, and in my opinion, even more satisfying than turning an actual page in a book. You can also use the buttons to scroll up and down depending on the app if you're consuming media. But in terms of reading, these buttons are so satisfying to use, and the whole system just works perfectly with reading. It's great. I own a Kindle and I've read a couple of books on it, but I've never truly enjoyed the experience as much as reading an actual physical book, just because there was no tactile feel with it, because you're just touching the screen to turn the page. But with this, it's like a blend. It kind of merges the two, and it's just something as simple as a button press, but it actually makes it feel a lot more satisfying when you're reading through a book just because of that one button. So clearly it's great for reading, but what this thing is also amazing for is media consumption and social media as a whole. As a person who's trying to get off their phone more and more these days, I've pretty much removed most social media from my phone. I also feel like it's kind of extreme to never use social media, because I think there's some benefits to it. And this device has been a weird bridge for me with social media and just consuming media in general, because everything is so much less stimulating when you're using an e-ink display. So I have most of my social media, which pretty much just includes Reddit. Like I don't really use Instagram or Twitter as much, but if I was to use those, I would put them on here as well. And consuming media this way, and if you read the news or whatever it is that you want to actually look up, like sometimes I'm just using Chrome on this device to look up dumb other tech products that I'm interested in because I obsess about this stuff. And so the fact that it's an e-ink display and the refresh rate is so trash, it's not nearly as stimulating, like I said, so you end up spending less time on the device and you feel a little bit more present when you're consuming the media. I'm just a big fan of trying to make everything less stimulating and less addicting on your smartphone, and this absolutely helps with that. And like I said, it's Android, so you can install whatever you want on this thing. You can put any apps from the Play Store. You could sideload apps if you want to as well. I use Notion a lot, and I have that on this device as well. So anytime I get ideas or I'm reading and an idea strikes me, it's so nice to be able to quickly go to that app and just, jot down a note or write down some idea, get back to reading, and do all of this stuff while it's also not super stimulating. It's a perfect experience for me. Also, I read a little bit of manga, and I wouldn't really recommend reading on this size or this device, but it's definitely possible, and you can download some manga if that's your thing. Okay, so I've been moaning and creaming over this device for the entire video, and I'm sure a lot of people are just saying, why don't you just get a Kindle? And to that, I kind of agree. I definitely think that it's hard to beat the price of a Kindle whenever you could buy a used one on eBay for like, I want to say 60 to 90 bucks. And if your ultimate goal is to just read more and you're not too worried about the little details like this that don't excite you as much as they might excite me, then definitely just get a Kindle. But when it comes to my brain and trying to romanticize the process of reading and just enjoy it a little bit more, this helps so much in that regard. But the device is far from perfect. There's definitely some weird flaws and things that I would warn people about before they even think about purchasing this. For starters, there's no headphone jack, which I think would have made it even better. We could have had, like your music player, your camera, and your e-reader device all in one little form factor, which would have been great because you could pair this up with maybe like a dumb phone or something else, and that altogether could be a great everyday carry. On top of that, the device feels super fragile. Like when I'm holding this thing, I love the way it feels. It's got a nice weight to it, but it does feel extremely fragile. Like the plastic on the outside, while it's nice and smooth and fun to touch, I definitely think if I was to drop this even one single time, it would get destroyed. And you could avoid that obviously by getting a case, but what I found is that the size of the device is just big enough to work and to function properly. And anytime I add a case, it kind of makes it feel a little bit too big and too chunky. And then on top of that, most of the cases suck, and all of the buttons then and the functionality of them still work, but they're not nearly as fun to press down, which I know is super nitpicky, but like I was talking about earlier, half the reason why this device is so great is because of the tactile feel that you get when you push the buttons down. So when you put a case on this thing, it just kind of ruins it for me. But I also don't want to break my device because I don't have the money to just drop this thing and then afford a new one when they're so expensive. Also, e-ink devices are kind of like a lottery ticket. I think most companies don't have the best manufacturing when it comes to these screens. So sometimes you'll get some that might have dead pixels or are a little bit not discolored, but I've seen some Reddit posts about them being a little bit more yellow than other devices that other people purchased. So I definitely be warned against that. And also Boox as a whole, I think is kind of a weirder company. They release so many devices that it's super overwhelming for any normal consumer. Boox as a company just spams out so many products. So if you're gonna buy one of these things and you're gonna get a Boox device, you're gonna have to do a lot of research, unfortunately. I really do think that this has been one of the best devices that I've ever purchased and will ever purchase, just because it encourages a lot healthier of habits for me and a lot of healthier habits for consuming media as well. And then you also get to customize it the way that you want to. You can make it such a personal device, and it's so much fun to use. So all of that encompassing into one device is why I love this thing so much, and it has genuinely changed reading for me. It's really nice to actually read more and to be encouraged more to read. Obviously, I still don't read nearly as much as I want to, but the habit has definitely gone up, and I find myself drawn to the act of reading way more with this device than doing anything else that I've tried to do with reading. But yeah, man, this is really one of my favorite devices that I felt like yapping about for the entire video. I appreciate y'all for watching, and have a great day. See ya.